Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our next webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series from this COVID-19 pandemic that we're all living through. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Kirsten Hughes, who is, of course, Managing Director at Travel Counsellors. So good morning to you, Kirsten. How are you?
Good morning, Lisa. I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very, very good. Although it's obviously another challenging week for us all. I felt that we were starting to get a little bit of momentum and people were feeling a little bit, perhaps a little bit more positive. And then, of course, we heard the news on Saturday, didn't we, around new rules and restrictions around customers travelling to Spain. And I wondered how that had affected your business, and I'd give us a sense really of how, what the impact was on your travel counsellors.
Well, I think, like for many, it was a bit of a shock to the system. We didn't see it coming quite as quickly as it came. I'm not surprised. I mean, it was always on the cards that countries could go back into quarantine or FCO. But I think the shock was more at the speed that it came at. 4 hours notice, or the rumour started 4 hours before it was actually announced.
Yes.
And that felt a bit quick. Now, of course, we're prepared. We've had crisis management in place for a very long time. So, and we're also fortunate that, we have in the UK over 1,200 travel counsellors looking after their customers. So we communicated to travel counsellors very quickly the bookings they had in resorts, bookings that were travelling in the following week. So we could get to our customers quite quickly. But it was a bit of a shock. And, I can't say I agree with all of it. And, from a customer point of view, is it the right thing for the customers? Probably not, and I don't think some of it makes sense, if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, let's come on to that. Just on the practical side of things, how many customers do you think you had in resort? And did you have to do, did some of them then need to get home quite quickly because of, obviously, their work situation, or have most people said, look, we'll just stay and come back as we were planning?
Most people have stayed. I think there's some frustration, of course, but most people have stayed. There wasn't enough notice to get people back.
No, as you say, 4 hours to try and get another flight.
4 hours. There was very few flights left on Saturday evening to get people home. And even if we got them on the flights on Saturday evening, they would have landed Sunday morning, so they'd still got into quarantine. So I don't think there was enough notice to get anybody home earlier. Some frustration from customers, but the majority of them are on holiday. This is still early in the season for a lot of customers, so the children will be off school for a few weeks post this. So I think the majority have just thought, I'll enjoy the rest of my holiday. It could have been worse. The SEO could have said, get customers home now. So it could have been worse. You've got to look for the positives. And obviously on Saturday it was only Spain, and we thought at that point, obviously the Canaries and the Balearics would continue to travel, which was going to have a bigger impact for us, and obviously that then changed on Monday.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you mentioned there that you don't really agree with all of it, or any of it, I don't know. Tell me which bits then, what's been the biggest frustration? And you said it obviously for you as a business, but you say actually it's not necessarily the right thing for customers either. So explain what you mean.
Well, I think, I'm currently in Spain. I came out to Spain 10 days ago, 12 days ago. And it's really safe. The travelling was safe, getting through the airport was safe, I came through Malaga airport. It was easy, very efficient. In Spain, people, particularly, I'm in the Costa del Sol, I'm in Marbella, people are adhering to the rules. They're wearing masks. They've been wearing masks in Spain for some time in the streets, in restaurants. So it feels very safe. And, on this coast, I think in the last 7 days, they've had less than 30 new cases of COVID. Now, for those that know me, I live in Bolton, that's surrounded by Rochdale, Oldham, etc., who are having much more cases announced every single week. So to make such a blanket decision seemed rash. Now, I don't really get into politics because everybody's got an opinion on it. But this weekend I was frustrated, probably for the first time, to a degree. The government said they're trying to do the right thing by people. And people need a holiday. For those that want to travel, they need a holiday. And other countries, we have an office in the Netherlands. The Netherlands made the decision to regionalise travel to Spain, which makes complete sense. I would have understood if they'd said travel from Barcelona or northern Spain, completely get it. But to shut Spain down completely just seemed a bit of a rash decision.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Canaries and the Balearics, well, that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever because the rates there are so low. And, you know, leading on from that, I thought the quarantine, and if I'm being a little bit cynical about this, on the quarantine, first of all, that didn't make any sense for the Canaries and the Balearics. The rates there are lower than they are in the UK. But what frustrated me more than anything else was the FCO changing the advice to travel to those countries, because it felt like a bit of a gut reaction. I think they sensed very quickly, because the headlines became about customers saying, well, I can't travel now, so who's going to pay for my holiday? And I can't quarantine when I come back because that won't be allowed, so I'm going to lose all my money. And it feels like the government clocked onto that quickly, and the one way out of that was to change the FCO advice. So then the onus sat back on the tour operators to refund the customers to stop some of the noise. So personally, I feel the decision on that was made for the wrong reasons. I don't think it was medical. I've read as much as I can on that, and I can't see any logical reason why they would have done it for the Canaries and the Balearics. I can sort of forgive them from Spain. They've talked about people travelling through Spain. There are a lot more Spaniards here than usual in the summer. So the Spanish are taking the same opportunities we are doing in the UK for staycations. So I get that it's very transient and it could move through Spain quite quickly. So I can sort of sympathise with that. I don't get it for the Canaries. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and of course, you make the point. Of course, now the FCO advice has changed. Tour operators now, you know, are obliged to not run their programs. They're going to have to refund, and that's, you know, when they've already got a backlog of, you know, refunds they're still trying to handle and to process, which is just a huge headache for them. And then of course trickles onto you because you've got to deal, or your guys have got to deal with the customers.
We do, and we have our own packages as well as the tour operator packages. And then obviously, as soon as the airlines start changing or closing down travel for the next few weeks, so Jet2 holidays, for example, that affects the airline. That affects us now repatriating customers who are actually on holiday. So it did feel like another blow and another challenge. However, you know, when you step back, I think, and our travel counsellors felt probably that it was another punch, you know, and other agents, I've seen social media. But actually, you know, just step back. Is it as bad as it was in March and April when everything was shutting down? It isn't. There's still alternatives that customers can travel to if they want to. Now, it could happen, and, you know, they could quarantine other countries, but it wasn't. It was uncomfortable. I think in some areas it's unnecessary, but we'll deal with it as we have. And it's smaller numbers than it would have been months ago. It is small numbers because we've been dealing with this now for months.
Yeah.
But even so, from a customer point of view, it just puts a load of fear into customers, and for many of them, it's unnecessary.
That's what I was going to say, because you say there are other countries to go to. Of course, there are plenty more countries on the government's COVID safe list, shall we call it. But, you know, the reports I've been seeing and agents I've been speaking to is just that people are now cancelling Croatia, or they're cancelling Turkey, or they're cancelling France or Greece, or, you know, they're now worried. You know, it's dented consumer confidence about whether people should travel at all. And the headlines are all like, you know, should you risk a foreign holiday? And that doesn't help our industry, does it?
It absolutely does not. And it is safer to travel to some of these countries than it is to stay at home. And that's what it doesn't make sense. Now, listen, we've always known, as we were going into the summer and the world started opening up, there's three types of customers. There's those that will not travel this year, and that's completely their decision. And, you know, the media have done a really good job of putting a lot of fear into the UK market, I think. So those customers, but that's their decision, that's fine. There's those that were just desperate to travel. I was one of them. I couldn't wait to get on a plane. I had withdrawal symptoms of not flying somewhere, so I couldn't wait to travel. And, you know, first opportunity I could, I was out there. Then you've got the point in the middle who just want some reassurance that they would still like a holiday, but what's it going to be like? You know, a lot of our travel counsellors have been travelling and recording themselves and sharing that with customers, and they've just wanted reassurance. Is it okay? And I think we were just getting to the point for many customers, it is okay. These destinations are open for business. They put protocols in place, restaurants, etc. And then suddenly 2 weeks in, and one of the most perceived safe destinations, isn't safe anymore. Now, have we seen an impact? Of course, because customers cannot travel for the next week or so anyway. So we're looking at that. But what we are finding is those customers that had made their mind up to travel, are saying, well, where else can I go? So we are seeing a shift.
Okay.
We haven't seen a mass exodus of cancellations. It's still early days. We're only 3 days into it, 4 days into it. But we haven't seen a mass exodus of, right, well,
I'm not going at all.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You are seeing people saying, I've got my head round going, I was going in a week's time, where can I now go? So we've seen a shift to destinations. Greece is still perceived to be safe. We've seen a shift to Turkey for families. That's offering good value. And it is really good value to travel right now with uncertainty. So we're seeing a lot of premium customers and affluent customers saying, I don't care, I'm going. So I think we have seen a little bit of a hit. It's too early to say yet whether it's hit the appetite for the rest of the summer. It certainly has put people into question, those that were travelling the end of summer, if they have to quarantine, children are back at school, etc.
Yeah.
So I think we may see a hit around that. But yeah, it's just, it's another challenge, but it's one we'll face and it's one we'll get through. But you've got to feel for the tour ops, and we're a tour operator as well. It becomes, I think there's been very little consideration through all this for us as an industry. And this was just another, well, it's a get out of jail card for us, for the government. We'll just put it back onto the tour operators and the financial risk, who are already struggling and have challenges. But we'll do the right thing by the customer. That's always been our, our focus, doing the right thing by the customer, making sure they are safe. That is really important, but doing it in a logical manner. And I'm not sure the government is doing that right now.
Well, before we move on from the government then, I mean, what would you like to see now? I mean, obviously, if they would lift it, that would be great, but they're not known for doing quick U-turns on decisions like that. And there's a lot of call for alternatives, which would then perhaps be, something they could put in place rather than these blanket quarantines. So like, better tracking and tracing and testing at airports. So, what would you like to see from the government in the immediate, short term, to try and get us out of these quarantine situations, and also longer term to support your business?
I think there's a couple of questions there. In terms of the quarantine going back for 2 weeks, move your track and trace centres, or where you can go for the test, to an airport. I'd happily come out of the airport and have a test, go home for 48 hours, get a free, get the results, and then it gives you the license to go back to work or not. And now you can get the test through the post, and you can get them within 24 hours. So I'd like to see, rather than a blanket quarantine, let's do better testing, or give it to the customer choice. If you can go home and quarantine for 2 weeks and you're happy to do that, and you're in a position to do so, that's up to you. If you are not, go and get tested. And if you can provide a clear result within 48 hours, then you're free to carry on with your line. That would make sense. You're right, the government won't change their minds, even when they've made mistakes. They'll at least leave it 2 weeks. They don't like to say, sorry, we gut reacted and we've made mistakes. So it will probably be at least 2 weeks, or at least a week, before changes are made. And I think from an industry point of view, there has to be a much better understanding of how this industry works and where the onus lies. It's the tour ops and the agents are the ones that are picking up the pieces with the customers. Yet, airlines aren't refunding, or they're taking 4 months to refund in some instances. So to have some sort of government minister who actually understands how the industry works, how it has been impacted, how it is structured. And we know from experience, the government doesn't really understand the industry and what it works and how it is set up and how the chain works and where the responsibility lies. And they should by now. There's been enough challenges for us as an industry in the last 5-10 years that we should have somebody who understands it and at least puts an opinion in before some of these decisions are made.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned right at the start, Kirsten, that when you first heard the news on Saturday, you were obviously getting that information out to TCs. I just wondered what other, you're very supportive. I know that you have been all the way through this crisis, but what kind of things are you doing at the moment to support your travel counsellors? I know that initially there were sort of different things at play, but where are you now with your support for your TC?
I think, listen, for all of this, the biggest thing has been to get our travel counsellors through the crisis. None of us knew back in March how long this was going to last, and I think we all hoped at that point it would be a couple of months and we get into summer and it would all be over, and that's apparently that's not happened. So our focus was always in a support. They were at the front end. Our travel counsellors at the front end. They're the ones that are dealing with the customers day in, day out. So our job and our focus is on supporting them. So very early on, we said communication is key. You know, we have a platform our business is set up to communicate well. We have our own studio. You know, suddenly everybody's now doing Zoom meetings and Skype meetings, etc. We'd always done that, and we've been very forthcoming in communication on a regular basis. You know, for 3, 4, 5 times a week by video with the community. We set up a like an internal hub within our system, which was a TC support hub, and within that, again, the focus initially was on how to deal with the crisis. So what do you do with the package, what we do in retail, all the supply policies went on there. That has evolved and it's moved on to learning and development for once you've sorted the crisis out, what you're going to do with your time. So learning and development, training. We've done a lot around mental health. The biggest challenge for everybody in this crisis, in travel or not, has been mindset and mental health of being at home. Now, for a lot of our travel counsellors, that was okay. They work from home. So that wasn't such a shock to the system, but actually being locked in, if you will, is different. Being locked in with your kids is different. Having to homeschool, balance that has been a challenge. So, and with all this, you know, I'm a great believer in it. It's something we've talked about a lot as a business. A lot of it's up here. It's 10% fact, 90% attitude. So our job's been to keep them focused, mindset positive, because if you can get through this, you'll get through anything. And you know, financially has probably been the biggest impact for our travel counsellors and many others.
I know but mental health can absolutely be exacerbated by financial concerns. Of course it can, and that could be something that many people, because obviously they effectively running their own businesses within your organisation, it must be a complete worry for some.
It absolutely is. And so part of the hub and the communication has been about supporting our travel counsellors with what financial support is out there and financial advice. So the JRS scheme work for some, self-employed scheme, the business interruption support, small business grants, tax relief, etc. We give them as much advice as we can. Now, we all know that some people fell through the net. Unfortunately, I think the government actually overall did an okay job, but there were people that fell through the net on that. But we've given as much advice as we can. We also, and I think you know this anyway, we have a personal counsellor. We've had one for a very, very long time in the business that all our travel counsellors can prevail of. So for those that have perhaps needed a bit more emotional support, that's been available. We've seen the community come together phenomenally well. There's quite a few Facebook community pages that jumped out of this crisis, and we've seen the community phenomenal support. I mean, we had a very strong community before. I think people perceive, because we have home workers, it's very remote, it's lonely. We've built a community over 25 years, but never before have I seen it come together quite as strongly as it has over the last 6-8 months. And then, you know, we've done other things like our monthly fees. We've waived our monthly fees until September. We'll continue to review that. We didn't want to put people under any more pressure than they were already under. And we're focusing now on strategy moving forward. So what can you do? Don't focus on what you can't do. That's what makes more people stressed. If you're focusing on what you can't control, that's very stressful. Focus on what you can control. So giving people tips and again, sharing with each other how other people are getting through it. And we just want to make sure that, you know, we don't leave anybody behind, that we are sailing a ship, we are navigating the ship through this crisis. We want to make sure we keep as many people on that ship as we possibly can.
Because when I spoke to Steve right at the start of this, Steve Byrne, he did say that unfortunately, you know, a few travel counsellors would not make it. We didn't really talk numbers, but you know, I think that's inevitable. We've seen lots of people lose their jobs, and you know, already there is going to be casualties in this. So, you know, how confident are you now that the ones you've got will keep going? Because people keep telling me, I know we've been through the worst, there is still a lot of pain to come. So I just wonder where you guys are on that as a business and with your individual members.
So to date, our attrition has been very low, actually, probably lower than it was this time last year. But we've been very encouraging with telling our travel counsellors, you do what you need to do to get through this financially. So, you know, if that has been to do other bits and pieces, then you need to do it. So to date, we've lost very few travel counsellors, because, you know, if we can look beyond this, and it's really important we all look beyond this, the strongest will survive. There will be some, you know, within this industry, sadly, there will be some casualties. Not every travel counsellor will make it, but the thing that we're all focused on is getting as many through as we can. Yeah. And I do believe the opportunities beyond this are going to mean we will be a much bigger, stronger business than we were prior to this. So I think for the rest of the industry, you know, it's very, very sad times. You know, I've been in this industry now 30 years, and I'm seeing a lot of friends and supply partners and going through terrible, terrible times and being made redundant. But travel will come back, and travel will bounce back, and we will be bigger and we'll be stronger. There'll probably be less people in the market to deal with it. So I think you've got to focus on that. Once you've got your head around this year, for most people, it's not been a complete write-off for us. We've managed to push forward a lot of our bookings into to next year. So many of them going into next year with a really good start, because we've got a lot of business on the books.
So you've got to think about those positives.
Absolutely. If you can get through the next few months financially and focus on the forward, at some point there will be a vaccine. At some point there's going to be a solution to this. If you can just hang in, I do feel we've been through the worst. I do. I think there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's getting brighter. I think there'll be some bumps along the way, but actually those that can get through this, particularly our travel counsellors that can get through, will have brilliant businesses beyond it.
Brilliant. I love your positivity. That's fantastic. And, you know, look, it stands to reason there's lots of people now not in jobs, but they are keen to be remaining in travel. I haven't seen you doing a massive recruitment drive, but I have seen other companies setting up sort of home working divisions and, you know, people trying to offer opportunities for people. Are people knocking at your door? Are you trying to get them to come and join you?
We're getting a lot of recruits. We had 4 new starters this week, and it's been interesting. Each week we've had new starters, and you know, of course, you're really starting your business now in travel at this time. Actually, there's never been a better place to start your business, Lucy, in travel, because it is going to bounce back quickly, and everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's in the same position. So we're seeing a lot of interest. We are seeing a lot of interest. We've been doing this a long time, you know. I think the opportunity for us from a recruitment point of view is, you know, everybody was forced to work from home, particularly sort of independent travel agents as well have had to close down shops and work from home, who would ordinarily never have thought about doing it, probably.
Yeah.
I think there are going to be challenges on the high street beyond this, you know, having to wear masks, having to socially distance, in shops, etc. It's not easy to talk to somebody with a mask on, it just isn't. We don't know how long that's going to last. So I think a lot of people have had the time and space to reconsider the careers. Those that sadly are being made redundant, let's face it, there's not going to be a lot of employed jobs in travel probably in the next 6 to 12 months. However, they love the industry. So, and I do think the government hopefully will come out with a lot of incentives for people to get back to work or start their own businesses. So I think for those that have sat back and thought, what am I going to do? You know, we are a great option. There's other options in the market, I'm sure there are, but we are a brilliant established option that's been doing it for a very, very long time. We're a community that supports each other. You know, our travel counsellors do support each other in building the businesses. So I think if people, I was talking to somebody this week in the industry who's just lost her job, and she's considering becoming a travel counsellor, and what the flow would be. You go through a process, don't you? We've had a lot of travel counsellors that have joined through redundancy. We had a lot from Thomas Cook last year. You go through a bit of a grieving process, and then what's next? And we are an option like many others are. We wouldn't be right for everybody. Home working won't be right for everybody, but I think, you know, and I'm going to say this, I think we're one of the best. I think we are the best at it. And I think, you know, we are recruiting. We will continue to recruit. I think for those that are despairing, they're losing the jobs in the industry, it is a consideration. There's no pressure. We'll have a chat with anybody to tell them how it is.
Because normally you say you want someone who's had, you know, a couple of years as a travel agent, but I've seen stuff on social media, people who are considering it now, who've perhaps been in the tour operating side and the supply side, and they're now thinking, well, could I be a travel counsellor? So are you now being a bit more open about who you'll talk to and who you might take on, as long as they've got some travel experience?
We'll talk to anybody. We have, again, I think that's a perception that we only take on agents that have worked on the high street in the last couple of years. Some of our most successful travel counsellors have worked for tour operators, because we are a tour operator, so as long as they've got the knowledge and they can build a package. So some of them have been some of our most successful. Of course, if you've got travel experience, you understand how the market works, you understand the destinations. Our systems are very, our tech is good. Our tech is we invest more than anybody else into our tech. So our platform allows people that maybe don't have Galileo experience to use the system and be able to sell holidays. So yeah, we'll talk to anybody, you know, we'll have a conversation, but we'll also be really honest. If it's not right for you, we'll be honest it's not right for you. We don't want anybody, unlike some, we're not going to say we'll take everybody for the numbers and then those people are not successful. We know we have a structure, we have a system, we have something that will allow people to be successful, but it isn't for everybody. And we'll always be honest with people and fair with people, because there is nothing worse than telling everybody you're going to be great at it when actually some just won't or can't.
Won't be their bag.
It won't be their bag.
A couple of times, Kirsten, you've mentioned that you're a tour operator, and we're aware of that. And when I spoke to Steve, he did indicate that this crisis and the shall we say, the behaviour of some of the tour operators that you were previously working with had meant that he perhaps wasn't so keen to work with everybody going forward, and that he would be putting more focus on your own tour operation. So has that started yet? I know obviously there's not been loads and loads of new bookings, but are you starting to push that even more? I mean, you've got your Summer Saviours campaign as well. Is that sort of through your tour operation?
Yeah, listen, we'll always do what's right for the customer. So we do deal with a lot of retail tour operators as well. We always have. Probably about, actually a bigger percentage of our package holidays are booked through our own atoll now than through retail supplies, but it is what is right for the customer and what products and content we have. We have a lot of content of our own, but also, you know, at the moment we're doing a lot of UK breaks that go through retail supplies. We don't contract, we do have UK hotels, but we don't contract our own lodges, for example.
Right. Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of business go to retail for UK at the moment, which is right. There are some, is there a tendency to shift to our own packages? There is, but there has been, in as much as we are in control of those. So throughout this crisis, what has been I guess really transparent is getting through to operators has been impossible. You know, you'll have seen it. Getting through to some operators can take 3, 4, 5 hours. That's just ridiculous and a complete waste of your time. If you're in control of the booking, then actually it's much quicker generally to unravel one of our own bookings, or actually give the customer a better service. So, you know, looking after them, we're not having to wait 5 hours to get through to somebody to fix it. So I think there's been some shift in that. And then some tour operators haven't, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, have been pretty appalling in how they've treated customers. And for us, customer is king. You've got to treat your customers correctly. Some have completely ignored the regulations of refunding, have made it very difficult for us to do that. And, you know, that's not the type of relationship we want. You've been around a long time. I've been at Travel Counsellors 26 years now. Some of these are relationships I've had with suppliers for a very, very long time. Our business is built.
Has that really surprised you then? Like, you've got these fantastic relationships over decades, and has it surprised you that you've been let down? It's
been disappointing. Listen, I've sympathised with them. We've had the same issues with airlines that some of these tour operators have had. I think I'm more disappointed in some of the suppliers that we know have funds who haven't refunded, who are refusing to refund when the terms and conditions say you need to, who've made it very difficult. Lucy, it's a small number. It's not a huge number, but it has been eye-opening on this.
What will you do for that? Where they were providing something that you couldn't provide before, I presume that's why you were using them, it wasn't in your portfolio. Will you now take steps to build that into your tour operation to make sure you can book it through your own, you know, channels?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll be honest, there's not a lot we don't have within our own portfolio. I think we have good coverage. However, habits, we get travel counsellors from all walks of life, so they tend to have habits of who they book with. I think it's been more of an eye-opener for our travel counsellors, because they don't, it's one booking in 100 you'd have a problem with ordinarily. Currently, we've got 95 out of 100 that you've got an issue with. So I think it's been much more transparent to our travel counsellors, the issues that we sometimes face. You know, we won't deal with some of these suppliers going forward. We'll get through the crisis. We'll have less on our supply chain. But then we're not saying we won't take more on, but they've got to understand our policies about bringing the customer first and doing the right thing. You know, don't put terms and conditions under my nose when we're not doing the right thing by a customer, because that's not the type of company we are.
Yeah, because there will be opportunities, won't they? And there always are in a crisis. You know, like there will be new tour operators probably that pop up and want to work with you guys, or there might be more opportunities that you see. And I wonder, are you at that stage yet? Are you able to sort of start to see if there are little sort of gaps or things that you can exploit now, that you can sort of see as a growth area or something positive for your business, or are you still sort of in head down crisis mode?
No, we are very much looking forward. I think we've got the crisis, under control. We still have refunds to process. We're still waiting on airlines. We've got a big team supporting our travel counsellors in the country. You think it's over, and then Spain happens. So,
Yeah.
we know what we are doing. There's now a good process in place. We are very much about looking forward. There's got to be loads of opportunity. In the here and now, the opportunity to travel and the value in travel is immense. Is absolutely immense. The premium product particularly, and we are seeing some. You touched on the summer savings campaign. The focus right now has to be on customers want safety. They want safety protocols. They want space. They want to be able to feel they can go outside without being with 1,000 people. So our focus has been very much on that space, private villas or space within, hotels. So the campaign is around that. I think going forward, you'll also see some suppliers be more choosy on who they work with, because obviously the risk currently for both ways, I guess, is high, isn't it? We are looking at supplier risk, just like suppliers are looking at agent risk. There's been a lot of conversations in the last 3-4 months. So I think the
just in terms of whether that the retailer will be financially secure and able to survive, is that what you mean?
Yeah, of course. Listen, some won't, Lucy. There's no way everybody is going to get through this. We operate a trust, so financially we were very strong. We don't use customers' monies. However, it's very transparent. Many do, and they've had a dreadful summer. For some are going to be over. Winter is they generally lose money anyway. A lot of these operators. Can they really last till next summer? I don't know, but I hope they do. I hope, fingers crossed, most survive it. But there will be some casualties. It's very, very sad. But you can't go a whole summer and part of last winter and potentially go into this winter with no business. People just can't afford to do that.
And you were saying, sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying there were some conversations going on in the last few weeks around retailers, were you?
Yeah, because we cover our risk. We cover our risk financially through various platforms, AFI insurance, for example, with the airlines, and then supply failure insurance. Obviously, insurers have become very touchy about the travel, so we've been seeing insurance getting pulled from various suppliers. The cruise lines, for example, were left exposed. And our job is to make sure, one, we mitigate any risk. So we look at another way of protecting ourselves, or alternatively, we can't, because we are the atoll holder in a lot of these cases, take that risk, and we'd have to make some commercial decisions. Likewise, just like we insure against others, people insure against us, and there's some touchiness in markets in credit. Now, because of our trust, it puts us in a very strong position, but not everybody's in the same position, Lucy. So I think we're going to see some movement. I think people are just getting to a point, suppliers are taking a bit of a breath. Everybody's been in crisis mode for 4 or 5 months now. It's what are we going to do going forward? How do we bounce back? We've probably been there now for the last 2 months, looking forward rather than back, because you have to. That's what excites me. Because I think the bounce back, so whether it's a V, whether it's a U, whether it's a W, whatever the economists want to say it's going to be, there is going to be a future at some point, and we want to be at the front of that and make sure our travel counsellors are, and they've got everything at their fingertips. So it's about building relationships going forward with the supply chain that we want and that want to work with us, not the ones that have made it really difficult for the last 5 months. Some have made it really easy, some have made it really difficult. We'll work with the ones that have made it really easy, and we'll make it easy. Yeah.
And as you say, the other way around, they'll be looking at which retailers they feel confident to have their products sold through.
Yeah, and some, I've read the headlines, hoteliers not being paid for last winter, and by some operators. It's terrible. It's not the way we also want to treat a supplier right. This is a relationship game. So we want to treat, just like we want a supplier to treat us and our customers right, we want to treat our suppliers right. And it's important that we do that. And, I've read some dreadful headlines. So I'm sure these hoteliers will not be dealing with some of these operators next year. What we don't want to see, and I think there's been rumours around Barbados, for example, is that they tar everybody with the same brush. Yeah. So they want to put everybody onto prepayment, and because that will put some challenges into the industry that not everybody deserves, to be honest, because some people have done the right thing and some haven't.
Absolutely. What is time, Kirsten? You said you're in Spain. Before we move on from that, because when are you due to be coming home? And then presumably you're a woman. We were just chatting about how we like to be in the office with people, but I guess you're going to have to quarantine, aren't you? As things stand.
As things stands in the current rules, we do. I mean, again, I'm really lucky. You know, the idea was I was going to come to Spain. The plan for this summer all along was to do 3 weeks, go back to the office for a couple of weeks while the directors are on leave, and then come back for the last 2 weeks. I cannot do that now because I can't I could get back in, but you don't really want to travel against FCO advice. And then my daughter would have to quarantine and not be able to go back to school. So fortunately, technology, we are set up to work from home. I can work from here quite easily. So I'm probably going to extend for another couple of weeks and stay here.
Oh, why not?
Why not? The sun is shining, it's safe, and then I'll quarantine when I go back, subject to that we still have to do that, because I don't think the government will come out with testing anytime soon or quickly. So I'll stay with the landlines when we go back, but I will be itching to get back in the office because I love being in the office. We've set our office up in our support structure now to socially distance. So I'm personally it's not for everybody. It sounds ironic when, you know, we manage a home working business.
Yeah.
I like to be in the office. I like the buzz. I like that. I just like it.
Yeah, well, you're a girl after my own heart. I'm fed up of being in my son's bedroom constantly, every day. But listen, it does, as you say, technology is wonderful, and it's meant I can get to speak to all sorts of people. And I'm absolutely delighted that you took the time to speak to us today, Kirsten. And we wish you all the best. And
thanks, Lisa.
And Karen, enjoying your break. I'm sure you're working every day. I know you're a workaholic, but
I'm actually working. I'm working from Spain. A few people have emailed this week and said, "I'm really sorry to interrupt your holiday." I'm actually working. The plan was for me to be working this week.
So. I don't feel so bad then if I made you come and talk to us for half an hour or so. But it's so lovely to see you, and we wish you all the best. And please keep us posted with how you and all your TCs are getting on.
We will. Thank you very much. Take care.